learning the law of attraction and having this come into me and understanding the blessing and the curse of it. And here's the blessing and the curse, that everything in your experience right now lines up and is in perfect vibrational match for you. So for those people who are listening and get pissed at that, I understand, right? Because if you're having a bad day, you just do not want to take responsibility for it. The blessing and the curse of that is learning how to use it.
Welcome to Exploring the Mystical Side of Life with your host, Linda Lang.
Hi, this is Linda Lang from ThoughtChange.com. We are exploring the mystical side of life once again today. If you enjoy our conversations, remember to subscribe, share with a friend. Today, we have my friend, fellow spiritual explorer, and the host of the Intuitive Mindset YouTube channel, Jeannie Lynch, with us. Welcome, Jeannie.
Yay!
Today, we are talking about emotions, our emotional set point, how we can shift it, and how that colors our life. What is an emotional set point, and why did you start exploring it?
Everybody has that dreaded scale we can't stand, right? So I don't weigh myself, by the way, because I can't stand the number, but we all have this weight that we kind of seem to bounce back to no matter how hard we try. And then why is there some people that are larger frame or smaller framed and they're always kind of fighting themselves, right? So you have a weight set point and you also have an emotional set point. And I think that's fascinating. So when you ask the question, how did I get started with this? I realized 20 years ago when I went through my own spiritual awakening that I was wired happy. And that wasn't a good thing at the time because, you're thinking, Jeannie, what a strange answer. I went through the loss of my daughter and yet I was wired happy. I've just got a buzz telling you that. There's my daughter stepping in. I went through this terrible tragedy and felt like everything I understood about myself all of a sudden was being challenged. I knew I was wired happy and I always kind of dealt with things in a positive way. But yet here I was grieving and sad and sorrow and heartache and the rest of it. So I was troubled by that, but also encouraged by that. And so that was kind of the understanding that, wow, there must be a way that I'm wired. Now, what do I do? I didn't understand the language of even what an emotional set point was until years later. So I have to kind of go back and tell you how this opened up for me. And I know you're going to relate. I'm grieving one day. I'm in the car. I'm in my car trying to get into work, and I don't think I'm going to make it because I'm grieving so hard. And so I'm praying at the same time, and I'm saying things like, Dear God, give me the strength to get through the day. Give me the tools that I need to, be able to put a smile on my face and do my job, right? As I'm making this prayer, I go in and my first client that day was a gentleman and he used this word on me. He said he was an empath. I had no idea what that meant. And he looked at me and he said, you seem to be in a place today, and don't be upset when I say this, but I'm feeling such grief from you. Now, he didn't know me and I didn't know energy work at the time. I just knew I was grieving and not in a good place. When he said that, I burst into tears. And in that conversation, we did get back to business at some point, but he said, at the end of today, before you leave, I promise I will drop something back to you that I think might be something you need. So at that moment, I thought, are my prayers being answered, or what is this guy even saying to me? I really didn't know. Later on, before I left work, his promise was there, and he dropped off a little sample CD of the law of attraction. So now I put the law of attraction in on my car and I started to play it. And I immediately thought that this gentleman that was in my office was a whack, because the information of Abraham and channeling and, I couldn't even listen to it. It was just, okay. Took the CD, ejected it, threw it to the back of my car, and life went on. I went back to grieving. couple weeks later, I'm vacuuming out my car. I vacuumed up the CD, put it back in, and my life was changed. When the law of attraction came into my life, it came in kicking and screaming, but also a welcomed friend, right? But I didn't understand how to use it. So for all those people who are listening right now who feel saturated with the idea of the law of attraction and, oh, I've heard this 1,000 times, and, please stay listening, right? Because the law of attraction is never going to go away. The universal laws are never going to go away. You might not understand all the mechanics to gravity, but I assure you we're not jumping off the roof today because it's still out there, right? So learning the law of attraction and having this come into me and understanding the blessing and the curse of it, and here's the blessing and the curse, that everything in your experience right now, including you and I doing this interview, lines up and is in perfect vibrational match for you. So for those people who are listening and get pissed at that, I understand, right? Because if you're having a bad day, you just do not want to take responsibility for it. But for those people who are right where they want to be, I like to think you and I are right where we want to be today, right? Everything's lined up and is in perfect alignment. And so the blessing and the curse of that is learning how to use it. And I think back to your question, what is the emotional set point? It gives you a chance to really pull back the law of attraction, niche it down, and understand the words associated with it and the feelings that are associated with it, pulling back those words. And we'll talk more about how we do that in this interview. But that's kind of how I got interested or attracted to it, excuse the pun, and why I think that the people out there listening who want to use the law of attraction to their advantage and stop seeing it as a curse and more as a blessing, once they use the skills in it to really, make the best of their day, right? Because you create it, you have that power. And so it's empowering as much as it could be upsetting.
The thing that popped into my head as you were talking is the awareness that our vibration isn't just our conscious mind, right? And just our emotions, but our soul or our higher self also has a plan for us and is also part of that vibration, as is our unconscious mind. We're a beautiful tapestry of these three different parts. And the law of attraction isn't kind of like a catalog where you get to order what you want. You can, what would the word be? You can
co-create,
not manipulate. I almost went to manipulate, but you can co-create with it consciously as long as those three parts are in alignment, right?
I love that. It's the three coming together, right? I remembered when I first started to hear this definition of God's school and, we're here to learn and we chose this. And, it brought me peace, but it also upset me. Like, I would pick this, but the truth is there's the co-creating in the three-prong approach right there, right? I chose this life. My daughter chose me. We chose this contract. I love all those things. They bring me so much peace. But I also like the definition of I chose the experience. I don't necessarily like the lesson. I think that feels a little bit like, the nun tapping me over the wrist saying, you're the problem, I don't like that, but I like that. Ooh, I even chose the experience of grief and leaning into the experience of grief, right? So to me, that's empowering instead of disempowering.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think we're here for the experience.
Yeah.
Jeannie, can you explain the difference between feelings and emotions for us?
So let me give you the textbook definition. If you look this up, okay, that emotions, the idea of an emotion is a physical or a psychological response to a trigger that you're having, right? And then when you think of feelings are more the conscious interpretation to those emotions. So that sounds like a whole bunch, but to break it down for your audience to understand, if I said to you today, hey, how are you feeling? Feeling joy. Oh, okay. What brings you joy? Well, I just talked to my friend Linda Lang for half an hour and we talked about spirituality, and I'm feeling such joy from that conversation. So you can start to really niche down or really understand, well, what is bringing you joy, right? And are those emotions? And my interpretation was, it was such a good conversation. And so it flowed and, or I say everything wrong today. I trip over my words. I finished this interview and I feel like I totally ruined it. You have so much editing to do, right? Then I'm angry and frustrated and upset. The event both happened. It's still the interview, right, that we're talking about. But all those emotions and all those feelings, interpretations are happening simultaneously, right? So to get in a little bit more about this process of the emotional set point, let's look at all the words that we have out there to describe how we're feeling. We don't have enough time in this interview to talk about all the emotions that are out there, right? So for the work that I kind of created or was channeled to me, and we'll talk about how that process came, I went to this beautiful book, right? The Bible of the Law of Attraction. Esther and Jerry Hicks' work really talk about the 40 feeling words. I could have used 1,000 different words. I just chose those because it was a great baseline to look at the different emotions. So one other little visual to show you so we could start talking about this scale is I took those 40 emotion words and I gave them a value. So from joy, which would be the highest, it's a number 1, to all the way to the last word in this scale, which is powerlessness, which has a factor or a weight of 10.75. Okay, so they're just broken down to give you value so that, and here's how this process works. I put up 40 words in front of you. So if you were coming in to do this work with me, I would just merely ask you, Linda, I'm going to put the word in front of you and you're going to tell me if you're feeling it all the time, if you're feeling it sometimes, if you're feeling it rarely or never. Okay, so that's all you have to do. So I take these 40 words and I do process of elimination for you. And guess what? This is how you feel today. Because today you're in a good place. 2 weeks from now, you could have some major loss in your life come in and grief could be at the top of it, right? So what I like about an emotional set point or having you discover it for yourself is if you're in a situation where you just don't know, and how many people out there, let's start there. You cannot fix what you're not consciously aware of. So if anybody's out there troubling in any situation, I don't know why I have a headache, or I don't know why that I get so angry when my boss calls me in or doesn't call me in, right? You can't fix what you're not aware of. So I love the emotional set point process because it really helps you do a deep dive into these words, letting you evaluate through the process of elimination where you are. When we keep going through this process of 40 words, you end up with 6 that we narrow it down to. So it's through the process of elimination. So I want to stop there for a second and talk about this process, because what happens if I've done this work with you today and joy, happiness, positive, what other great words are out there are all sitting in the never pile. And what happens if anger, frustration, hatred is sitting in your always pile? Now we've done some really good work because we've identified where the problems are, because we all know what words we should be feeling and not, right? Somewhere right around boredom, we get to the bottom of the scale. So we all want, ideally, to get up and be in joy and bliss all day, every day. We also know and need to know what words are tripping us up and getting us into trouble.
Do you think that's true that everybody wants to get up and be happy and blissful every day?
Oh, good. That's actually a really good question. I would like to hope to think that the work that we're doing vibrationally is getting people to that conscious state. Because like if we were on the other side and none of this was an issue because we didn't have bodies and we weren't suffering in any way, where do you think they're coming in at? The scale can't even go above joy because then we're on the other side and we don't have a physical body. So to your question, to be on the other side and to be totally without any suffering, you can't carry hatred and sorrow and heartache and the rest of it. So do I think everybody wants to be? I guess I would say I really hope so in a sense, but do I think they have the ability to be there? I think that's what's keeping us not ascending. Hence the work that we can call ourselves healers, right? I don't think our work is done here. This work is about people's intention for wanting to be the best vibration that they can be.
The idea of choosing to be happy reminds me of that book by Brené, where she was an end-of-life nurse and wrote a book about the top regrets of the dying. One of the top regrets is that people at their end of their life realized that they could have chosen to be happy.
This work is about the people who at least want to consciously be the best, hopefully, vibration that they can be. And some people's emotional set point might be a 5 or a 6, and no judgment here. It's knowing that they're there. And I think that this body of work is not to fix anything. I don't think it's about being a 2 and everyone can say, I came in at 2. I think it's just giving awareness for people to know where they are and for them to choose whether they want to stay there or be higher, or at least go, wow, this is the emotion. This is the emotion that is holding me back right now, right? So I'll give you an example. When I did this work, when I did it for myself once, I was amazed. I was amazed that grief was in my rarely never pile. Because I would have told you that would land there and would always be there for the rest of my life. And I wore it like a badge. This particular day, it was in the never pile. And I was like, look at that. Like I could honestly say I wasn't grieving in that moment. Now, today, if I did this, grief would be in my always pile because I'm grieving a version of myself that has not been around for a while because I haven't been feeling well. All because my energy level is in the tank. Okay. So grief for me is I'm grieving self. I'm grieving the energy I used to have. So see how we can get to, do I want to be grieving? No, at least now I know. And then I can know deeper that it's grief, not for my daughter, but grief for energy. And now I've identified what could be substantially a problem that I would like to increase or fix. Does that make sense?
It does, although I am wondering how thinking about your emotions takes you out of experiencing your emotions. And it's through experiencing them that we process them and let them go.
Good point. In this process, right? I'm giving you little samples. And so I know at the end of this, we're going to invite people, if they want to try this, to do it for themselves. It's an experience of, you have to kind of go through the whole thing. In this work, when we identify what could be the things that you want to work on or fix or kind of tweak or look at, all you're doing when you identify them is writing affirmations around them, softening them a little, giving yourself forgiveness on them, having the awareness to it. I mean, sometimes just the awareness to say, oh, the grief I'm feeling today is that I'm grieving my own energy. Okay. That doesn't really feel that heavy for me. I'm not that concerned. That feels temporary, right? But getting up every day with hatred in my heart for my job every day and just being so angry that I have to go to work, I might want to dive a little bit deeper there. That might be causing other issues, like why am I in that job? And it might be time to look for something different. So I think it's just a process of awareness to give people to go through and then have them do deeper work if they choose to. I think a lot of people could be out there walking and not even aware of what the problem is. And I think that this work helps them identify that to do a deeper dive.
The good thing about having this conscious awareness is that you step out of any spiritual bypass, because we have a tendency to want to look at everything with rose-colored glasses so that we can keep our vibration up. Although what I would say about that is it's a surface level. It is a surface level, almost illusion that we have a high vibration if underneath we're feeling all this rage and frustration and grief and guilt.
Hence the reason, set point, we bounce back to what we naturally vibrate at.
I don't think that everyone really does choose to be happy. I think that if they did, the world would be a different place. But so often we're focused on the flaw, the things that are wrong. And sometimes that intention is to fix or improve those things, but really we're just sending energy to the things that we consider broken or wrong.
Some days I want it more than others. Some days, if we're in the experience of just being in where we are, right? I always say to people who are grieving, because I work with a lot of people who are, I say, you're grieving today because it's safe to grieve. So let's just get together and grieve. I'm not going to change it in any way. In fact, let's lean into it and just experience the emotion of grief. So I'm not trying to change it. But if the person showed up not even knowing that that's what they were doing, that's awareness that I would want them to kind of lean into.
Okay, Jeannie, can we shift our emotional set point, or is that how we're born and that's what we carry through our life?
I think we always have the ability to look and dive and get up every day and kind of co-create, as you were saying earlier, our best intention, right? So energy permitting, right? So there's this great thing that is in this work, and it's this understanding that, it's a saying that I have, and I want to share it with your audience. And I say, the antidote is in the polarity. And I want to talk about that. If we look at the emotion of grief, and again, this is if you're intending to shift it. We talked earlier about you're just grieving, so grieve, okay? Let's say you wake up like I did that day where I couldn't even get out of the car to go do my job. I was seeking and searching for an answer to get through the day and asking Source to give me some tools and solutions so I could get through the day. I'm feeling that day grief. So that was my emotion. If I went to the antidote of my grief, what would it be? It would be not feeling disconnected from my daughter. It would be peace. It would be acceptance. It would be love. It would be leaning into, the memories of her versus the loss of her. So the antidote in that day, in that emotion, was the opposite emotion that I was experiencing. So if you're feeling powerless, right, what would be the antidote to that would be to be in power. If you were feeling hatred, it would be leaning into acceptance, right? So for the people out there right now who want to give some mindfulness to what they're feeling, if they could identify, you could take a quick exercise would be to write down the emotions that they're feeling. These are the ones you're trying to shift, by the way. If you're feeling joy, do you really need to fix that? Right? Stay right where you are and lean into it even more. But if your audience asks today to come up with 3 things that they're feeling that they didn't want to feel, that those emotions were too much for them and they wanted to shift them, they felt like they were pulling them down vibrationally, have them write down those words and then just look at them and go, okay, this is my feeling. These are my emotions, right? Lean into them as much as you can. And then go out and Google the opposite emotion would be. If I was going to be on the other side of this emotionally, what would that emotion be? And now they take those words, they've got their antidote, because the antidote is in the polarity, and then ask them to focus on those words. Well, what would bring you that? More joy if it was the opposite of it, right? And then for them, because everybody is so uniquely different, right? At least now they have another focus. And this goes back to work that you and I have been doing on the side, right? Closed emotions, open emotions, leaning in, right? Leaning out, muscle testing, right? You're really just heading into a higher vibe or a better feeling thought to pivot you to a different emotion that will have a different result. Because the one that you're in right now that is causing you heaviness is not offering or of service to you in any way.
So, Jeannie, what would you say to anyone who has a lot of repressed emotions so that they don't even know that they're feeling that anger or that grief? I've seen that in my own practice where someone doesn't even know they're carrying so much anger until we start to do the work and they're gobsmacked.
Yeah, that's such a good question. When I'm working with people intuitively, it seems so easy for me to be with somebody vibrationally and have them sitting with me. And I can go intuitively because all we're doing is tapping into their energy, right? So I think that's a great place to put this in too, that when you're doing this process with people, it's them doing this work for themselves. Okay. When people come in to sit with me and I feel those emotions or I find those blocks, it identifies the same work. And so what would I do if somebody was in my office and getting a reading from me and I felt that emotional block and I knew it was tying them up? I would come at that so slow. Let me just kind of role play. I'll take you through what would happen. I need to get quiet to do that, right? So I can honor that. It happens so often, right? I'm in a session with somebody and I see some childhood trauma. I see it and I'm not even aware if they know it's happened or if they know they're still carrying it or if they're going to be okay with me opening up that gate, because it's an opening, right? So if I'm with somebody and I see that and you're asking about trauma, I would come at that so slow. So to make sure that I'm not opening up Pandora's box or I'm opening up something that they're willing to look at. Is it showing up because it's time? So if that was the situation, I would say to that person, when I look at your energy, what I'm seeing is a spike. And a spike shows up for me in your childhood or in your timeline, something that is telling me there is something that we should be looking at, or I'm identifying a blip, like a whoop, okay? And I want you to know I'm seeing this, and I'm seeing this at the age of, and I'm giving you an example right now, I'm seeing this at the age of 10. And what I'm hearing is it has something to do with maybe your mom and your dad not being together. And I'm hearing that you took that on in that place. Is that something that makes sense to you? And can we dive a little bit deeper? So covered with goosebumps, right? So I don't know why, right? That is just soft opening for that person to dive a little bit deeper. Now, if they say to me, no idea what you're talking about, right? Or I feel like they burst into tears, right? Or, oh my God, or, that's my father died, whatever that is. Then I take that next step as gingerly as that first step is. And then we go through that process slowly. So they feel the same as far as somebody looking at this for themselves. we all have to do the work ourselves, as you know, as a healer, right? I'm not healing anybody. I'd say I heal with my words by giving awareness and language to what they might be experiencing or they've experienced, that it's showing up or it's time to dive deeper at. So any spiritual work is an exploration in their own place, right? So at their own time. So that's what I love about this, because it really just gives people maybe some direction to say it's time or it's not time. And that's for
What is your process called?
the emotional set point process.
So we're going to put a link in the show notes to Jeannie's video so you can do this.
I just want to say that for anybody who's in a place, whether you're novice or, an energy healer, this is a tool for people just to explore. And if you're into the law of attraction and you want to be able to heal yourself and you're aware of consciousness and you want to be the best version and you feel like you're blocking yourself, this is the kind of first step that you could take in just giving you more language to dive deeper. Is this a one-shot deal? No, you could come back to this in a moment and do this 6 months from now, or you could do it daily. It's like a chakra test. Have you ever done a chakra test? I use the chakra test in my spiritual classes as a tool. I have everybody take that test for the first class that they come, just for fun, to gauge where we are. And if you know from that test, sometimes my crown is jacked open and sometimes my root is a mess. It can change daily. So this is that same kind of awareness, because we change vibrationally and emotionally. But back to the point, we're always going to kind of gravitate back to, right, our emotional set point, our physical set point, right? So those are things that might take a deeper exploration.
I do think that it is possible to really shift that. I certainly have seen that with some people, that it's like a switch flips on the inside and their outlook on life changes, and then their trajectory changes.
It's all part of the ascension that we're going through right now, too. We will only evolve as high as the last person up, right? So we got to do this together, right? And help people along the way, which I love.
No man left behind.
Yes, exactly.
Perfect. Jeannie, if anyone would like to know more about your work, where can we send them?
Hoping people will connect to my YouTube. It's a great resource. And for other people like you who are interested in sharing what they have, it's another great place for that. So I love people to visit that. My intention with my channel is literally just to change the world one video at a time. That is my tagline. So anyone who can help me do that would be great. I welcome that.
Beautiful. Thank you for being my guest today, Jeannie.
Thank you, Linda. I'm so happy to finally sit with you and be on your show. Love your show, by the way. Thank you for all the work that you do for others.
And thank you for listening to this week's edition of Exploring the Mystical Side of Life. You will find all of our conversations on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, on Spotify. Come visit me at ThoughtChange.com to learn what energy medicine can do for you. Pick up your copy of Learning to Listen, and we'll see you again next time. Bye for now.